Usually, Tzeentch is all about that spell kiting using pink fire and blue fire to whittle down their opponents from afar. However, Mr. Teufel here is not doing that at all. Instead, he is going for a melee rush, supported by a rather uncommon character, the Cultist of Tzeentch. Overshadowed by the lore of Tzeentch casters, he only has lore of fire, but he does have a very important item to this melee rush build, the Wand of Whimsy, just like Bonewood Staff of Wursak, providing a map-wide damage boost in melee whenever the caster is casting spells. So for the spell kit, we have Flamestorm, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and Cascading Fire Cloak, as well as the Power Stone for additional regeneration of magic, and also Gate of Tzeentch for a pink horror summon. For the rest of the army, a front line of Marauders of Tzeentch backed up by a couple Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch, a little bit of a tougher backbone, and 3 spawns of Tzeentch at the back. The Chromatic Abominations for a little bit of fire support, and in the skies, a bunch of Chaos Furies. Leading the army, we have a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Metal, but there is no spell on this Lord. Instead, there's only a sort of change for the Chaos Spawn summon. As for the other side of the battlefield, we have the Dwarf army here with a front line of Marauders. On the flanks, some Dwarf warriors with great weapons protecting a couple flame cannons and a single grudge thrower. At the back there, 3 units of Slayers for the anti-large. As for the characters, we have a Thane on the flank, and in the middle, leading the army, the Slayer King himself, Ungrim Iron Fist. He's not the most popular Dwarf Lord, but he can output some serious damage in melee. Anyways, that's it for the army build, and now let's see how Mr. Teufel rushed with Tzeentch. This Tzeentch army isn't like any other Tzeentch army. This just goes straight for the rush, no tricks, no kite, no maneuver, trying to get into a fight as soon as possible, almost like an orc. So the Tzeentch army will be rushing while the Dwarf infantry will be forming up their lines, moving up their artillery, readying up to blast those Tzeentch formations. As you can see here, the flame cannons are already opening up, but they are shooting at the Chaos Furies in the skies, not doing the greatest impact damage. Also hit the Chaos Sorcerer Lord at the back, even hitting the spawns of Tzeentch, but all their Tzeentch shield basically blocked all the damage, and the spawns are not taking any HP losses. Although the Chaos Furies did take some losses, some casualties, a few unit models died here and there, but nothing too substantial here. Of course, the flame cannons do a lot more damage against infantry, so the Furies will have to be sacrificed, dropping on top of those artillery models and trying to silence them. The Slayers are hidden in the tree line, now moving up to try to deal with the Chaos Furies, but they're deployed way too far back, giving the Furies the time they need to do damage. In the front line, the infantry of both sides are colliding. Marauders charging into the miners, and they're not taking too much blasting damage, all thanks to their Tzeentch shield, and after the spawns of Tzeentch crashing in. If we slow down here, you can see that the spawns of Tzeentch has 48 melee attack plus armor sundering, and also has extra weapon strength, all thanks to the Flaming Sword of Ruin plus 1 of Whimsy combo. With the spawns armor sundering reducing the miners' armor, the entire Dwarf front line is getting demolished right now. The flame cannons have been routed, there is still one firing over here, and the grudge thrower are also shooting. The spawns of Tzeentch doesn't really care about the artillery fire, as they're just mowing down all those miner front line, and without the miners holding back the enemy infantry, the grudge thrower and flame cannons will be falling victim to the next wave of Tzeentch assault. Also, the chromatic abominations opening fire at the lightly armored Slayers here, chipping away their HP, while the Marauder plus Spawn rush are now breaching through the front line, getting on top of the grudge throwers. The Slayers should do some good damage against the spawns, but they are not going to trade well into the rather cheap and cheerful Marauders of Tzeentch. Now at the back there, we have Ungrim Iron Fist trying to push the Chromatic Abominations, but that is not quite the target he wants to fight. Instead, he should be dueling the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, as the Chaos Sorcerer Lord is surrounded by Slayers and supported by a bunch of pink horrors of Tzeentch. Dwarf warriors moving in, but they are great weapons, so not the most cost-efficient trade against the summoned pink horrors, which will disappear soon. And at the back there, Marauders are recovering from their rout 3 minutes in, and the Dwarf box is in a whole lot of disarray. The Slayers might just be able to hold on though, due to their unbreakable status and also great melee attack and defense, trading pretty decently against the spawns, all thanks to their anti-large bonus, but also the support from the Thane and the Dwarf warriors allows them to hold back all those Marauders. And after those Marauders falter, it is easier to focus down the Chaos Spawn. Over here, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord now supported by a whole lot of spawns who are dishing out a lot of pain against the Slayers. They probably did a lot of damage, but they don't have any armor to protect them and will eventually be snuffed out. The Pink Horrors are not finding any good targets to shoot because all the artillery is pretty much offline for the Dwarf army, and all the front line there, only some Dwarf warriors are still holding on the far side. A flame storm going down this blob here as most of the Tzeentch infantry is gone. Just some cheap chaff of Marauders are still there and some unbreakable spawns of Tzeentch holding this line, this flank here, doing a little bit more damage with that spellcast melee boost. Chaos Warriors are now engaging in battle and are cleaning up whatever's left on the Dwarf side. Now that all the artillery is offline, there's not much the Dwarfs can do against the Tzeentch armored infantry. They have been held in reserve for this entire time specifically for this purpose, to clean up whatever's left on the Dwarf side, where they have now exhausted most of their resources, unable to handle all these heavy infantry. Dwarf miners are throwing out their blasting charges, but that is not doing too much damage to the heavily armored Chaos Warriors. More and more Dwarf infantry is breaking, freeing up the Tzeentch infantry forces, though the Dwarfs did manage to break off the Tzeentch Sorcerer Lord. Ungrim, giving himself a massive damage boost with Red Ruin, did indeed ruin the life of the poor Chaos Lord. But that is not going to change the balance of power at all here, as the Tzeentch army does have the upper hand. We'll be going into fast forward here, as the rest of the miners, the Dwarf warriors are slowly being cleaned up. The Flame is still fighting strong here with the support of a few Slayers, though. The Flame somehow is still very healthy, but once the Slayer support is gone, he will start to take more damage. Now Ungrim is still holding on for sure. He is unbreakable as a Slayer King, but he is not immune to damage. Mr. Teufel here spamming all kinds of spells, trying to get those melee attack boosts. The Tzeentch army is steadily grinding down Ungrim's health with a combination of Flaming Sword of Ruin boosting that weapon damage and Wand of Whimsy boosting the melee attack, making those hits more consistent. Being overwhelmed by superior numbers, Ungrim eventually gets the Slayer's death that he always wanted. GG to both players, and big thanks to Mr. Teufel for sending in this replay. He brought in a rather creative Tzeentch build here, relying on the spawns and the Marauders to overwhelm the Dwarf frontline, and as a result, the Dwarf defenses buckled in front of the melee attack spam from the Cultist of Tzeentch, eventually got broken through, and the Tzeentch army were able to shut down the Dwarf artillery. Now this battle is played and recorded before patch 4.0, however I do think that this has potential in the new patch, especially with Shadows of Change DLC bringing in multiple melee units for the Tzeentch army. Perhaps it is time for Tzeentch to rush with Zangors and Vortex Beasts supported by this melee attack spam. On the other side for the Dwarf army here, once the minor frontline buckled in front of the spawns plus Marauders, the Slayers were all that's left to hold on for this battle, and due to their low armor, they got worn down eventually, allowing Ungrim to get surrounded and overwhelmed, while the flame cannons and the grudge throwers were not able to earn the value they need to carry the game. And yeah, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoy it, and if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to my channel and keep an eye out for new video uploads. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.